Halo used to be special. It used to be able to captivate not only Xbox players, but the entire gaming industry as a whole, not just through its revolutions in multiplayer and sandbox creativity, but also for its stories, creating some of the most memorable moments in video game history. And then we got this.
Come a long way together. A long way yet to go. Let's make a good jump like we mean to, and handle fools like we need to.
Now, some severe writing issues aside, I think these stories of 343 games weren't inherently doomed from the start, but things started to go slowly downhill, in my mind, due to one major issue, an issue that to this day continues to plague video game stories like rats in medieval Europe, and that is transmedia. Now, transmedia is the idea that the same story and universe is being told through multiple mediums. This is a pretty good idea on paper, as it allows the audiences to capture a glimpse of the universe you might not be able to see during gameplay, and helps to reinforce main stories by propping up smaller stories around it. Star Wars is primarily known as a movie franchise, but it has a variety of books, comics, shows and video games that help to flesh it out even more, which is good for Disney's Star Wars because boy did that franchise need some fucking flesh after shooting themselves in the foot with those films. Another good example is all the way back when Halo Combat Evolved first came out, the book The Fall of Reach was also released, detailing a planet that is talked about at the start of the game and giving details on how it fell and more information around Master Chief and the Spartans. You don't need to read this book to understand Combat Evolved or understand who Chief is, but it's a nice bit of extra detail for those who want to know more. In fact, during the Bungie era, there would be a lot of stuff released alongside it that would help to expand the universe. Until Halo Reach decided to do its own thing and completely shit the bed, but that's besides the point. Now, 343 took over Halo pretty much as soon as Halo Reach launched, with Bungie slowly withdrawing from the game over the course of the next few months. And it seems like the new executives over at 343 really wanted to get this franchise going full speed. Not only in the gaming department, but in other aspects of media as well. They wanted books, they wanted comics, they even wanted some live action projects, trying to get a bigger audience in different markets. Right off the bat, you had some good and some bad. One of the main characters that would be featured in Halo 4 was Thomas Lasky, the second in command of the Infinity and a strong supporter of the Chief. And because of his narrative importance, we got Halo Forward Unto Dawn, detailing Lasky becoming a soldier and the Infinity discovering Cortana's distress signal. It was a decent bit of media. It shows the horror of the Covenant attacks when most of humanity weren't even aware of their existence. It has decent action and special effects considering the budget. It has one of the best Master Chief designs, and it helps to explain why Lasky had so much admiration for the Chief, despite Chief only briefly meeting him. You don't need this film to know who Lasky is in the game, but it really helps to give him some more flesh. And then you have the villains. The Didact is the main villain of Halo 4, the last Forerunner in the galaxy that wishes to wipe out humanity and retain Forerunner dominance over those he views as inferior, which in this case is everyone that isn't him. Besides the main story, you can also find terminals in each level that give a bit of a glimpse of backstory on who he is and why he hates humanity. But these terminals aren't very long and they lack detail, making his motives a bit shallow and meaning that if you want more details on why he feels, you need to read the Forerunner trilogy to fully understand him. Not the worst bit of transmedia, but it does make the Didact come across as a bit one note because of it. Alongside the Didact, you have Jul Umdama, the leader of the Storm Covenant and the one who fights to get the Didact released from his imprisonment. Now, based on what we see in the main game and the Spartan Ops storyline, you'd think that Umdama is a religious zealot that, while acknowledging that the Halo rings are weapons and not salvation, still worships the Forerunners and their technology. But no, Umdama doesn't believe in the Forerunners being gods or worshipping them. He's actually just manipulating everyone in the Storm Covenant for his own benefit. But of course, you wouldn't really know that because that side of his personality is only really present in the Halo 5 trilogy of books. And so if you only played the games, you'd have no idea that he's just trying to use the Didact and Forerunner technology to take revenge on the UNSC for killing his family. Not the worst thing, again, it could have been expanded on in future games, but not the best start for a major antagonist that you're going to be fighting. It was after the release of Halo 4 that the transmedia related project really started to mess with the story of the Halo universe that gamers would be experiencing, both in terms of the directions of the plot as well as details surrounding the characters. Halo 4 finished with the idea that while the Didact had seemingly been defeated, he was still alive somewhere in the galaxy, ready to continue his crusade against humanity. We also got the Spartan Ops storyline, bringing Halsey back into the main story of Halo Halo and introducing us to Fireteam Majestic, with team member Thorn being a key player in the story, as well as Fireteam Crimson, the playable Spartans through this game mode. Throughout this story we are introduced to the Janus keys, Forerunner tech that would allow the wielder of both keys to have access to every Forerunner installation, outpost and major piece of technology in the galaxy, with said places being a treasure trove of artifacts, weapons and knowledge. Now, Oni orders Palmer to assassinate Halsey, as she had started to become a liability and a threat to the Infinity, and despite Halsey giving Thorn one of the Janus keys, Palmer arrives and shoots her in the arm, before Jewel Umdama teleports the two of them to safety. After this, the setup for the next Halo game seems to be quite clear. The Didact, in one way or another, is going to continue his campaign against humanity, possibly using Umdama and his Covenant to help with his cause. Umdama himself is going to try and get the other half of the Janus key and to use the Forerunner tech to establish dominance for his Covenant and get revenge, and Halsey, although her end goal isn't thoroughly explained, is allying with Umdama to also get the key, wanting revenge against Oni for her attempted assassination that caused her to lose an arm. And while we most likely wouldn't see Fireteam Crimson again as they're not proper characters and you just used to play as them for the storyline, it definitely pointed to Fireteam Majestic, especially Thorn, continuing to be supporting characters for the story. So what happened in Halo 5 then? A bunch of storylines that had absolutely nothing to do with any of this, and in fact weren't even really hinted at or set up before the game came out. The reason behind this is because the plotlines were concluded in the comics. Remember how the Didact fell into the composer well on his ship, but very clearly didn't get composed by it, showing he is indeed immune to the effects, and they talk about in the terminals how he's immune to the effects? Well, in the comic, he is randomly teleported to a different part of the galaxy onto a Halo installation. He kills an entire team of Spartans, and then he tries to activate Halo to destroy humanity, with the Chief and Blue team killing him by knocking him into the machine that creates the composers, which digitizes him despite it previously being stated this doesn't work on him. And for the Janus key plotlines, Halsey uses it to get a record of all the Forerunner tech, but it then immediately gets taken from her as soon as she gets it, meaning that all of this story was completely and utterly pointless. And DeMarco, the leader of Majestic, is killed off fighting the Covenant, and Thorn is made the new leader of the Fireteam. So between Halo 4 and 5, you have a MacGuffin that everyone fights for that ends up being pointless, you have a story of Thorn having to step up and become a leader that most people won't see, and you have the Chief continuing his fight against the Didact only for it to get wrapped up immediately and for a new saga of Halo to lose its main villain. These storylines should have lasted ages. You have three chess masters plotting against each other, you have the drama of Chief being conflicted over whether to follow orders or pursue revenge against the Didact for Cortana's death, and instead of having the plots involving the end of the world or Halos firing or the Flood being released, you have a bunch of smaller, more personal stories and conflicts you could have shown, such as the Arbiter teaming up with the Brutes to fight Umdama's Covenant, Majestic losing DeMarco with Thorn trying to hold them together, and Halsey's desire for revenge coming into conflict with her desire to be reunited with Chief, and all of it just gets swept under the rug before Halo 5 releases. Literally, the last time gamers saw Palmer and Halsey in the same room together, Palmer tried to kill her and Halsey swore revenge, and then Halo 5 comes around and they're just having snarky banter with each other, and I don't even think there's any mention of the fact that Palmer caused her to lose her arm. It's all just swept away. The things related to the comic aside, it was announced that Buck would also be returning for Halo 5, now a Spartan and assisting Locke in his hunt for the Chief. I wonder what interesting things have been going on in his life that we can learn about. Whoops, sorry, all of that is relegated to a novel you most likely haven't read, because he doesn't really talk about anything that's been going on in his life in the game. And on top of that, you remember that squad you played as for an entire game? Well, the rookie gets taken hostage by a normal human and then gets capped in the back of the head. Dutch gets PTSD from this and decides to retire, and Mickey, a soldier in the UNSC who watched one of his friends get executed by insurrectionists because they would rather die than try and negotiate peacefully, decides to betray the UNSC and join the insurrectionists in committing more terrorist attacks for some reason. It's not very well written. I will say we did get an okay bit of content in the form of Halo Nightfall, a small web series that showed us the type of person that Locke is and to establish him before we played as him in Halo 5, but that was about it. So Halo 5 happens, Go watch this video if you're desperate to see it get torn apart. None of the plot points set before it matter, and the game ends with Cortana unleashing the Guardians on the Galaxy as the Infinity flees and Chief, Locke and their team arrive on San Helios to meet up with Arbiter and Halsey, as Cortana plans to do something with one of the Halo rings. On top of this, we have Halo Wars 2, where the crew of the Spirit of Fire are mysteriously teleported to the Ark and forced to fight the Banished, a group of space pirates that splintered off from the Covenant and are led by Atriox, who wishes to seize control of the Ark and get back to the galaxy. The Spirit of Fire launch a replacement Halo with Anders on it to get back to the UNSC, although she is intercepted by a Guardian when it arrives. Again, for gamers, the setup story for the next major Halo game is that the UNSC and a lot of other species are being policed by Cortana, the Guardians, her Promethean forces, and the rogue AI who join her, with only the Infinity and a few small groups opposing her. And Atriox and a big group of his forces are stranded on the Ark fighting the Spirit of Fire, and they will also most likely be forced to deal with Cortana once she learns from Anders what's going on the Ark. So how many of these plot points are going to be important in Halo Infinite? Absolutely none of them. Anders and the Spirit of Fire aren't really mentioned at all. Atriox is brought back to the galaxy in the book Shadows of Reach, and we don't really get to see any of the fighting against Cortana at all. Cortana is imprisoned by the Weapon, an AI that is created using the brain samples rescued in Shadows of Reach, which you won't know about unless you read that book, and Cortana then explodes her part of the ring that she's imprisoned in. Again, for gamers, Atriox is just back in the galaxy with zero explanation given, and then Cortana was somehow locked down when they created a weapon from a brain sample they got from somewhere off screen, and then Cortana dies. Atriox disappears from the rest of the game, and if you want to know what happened with all the other Spartans and UNSC forces that arrived on the Halo after the Infinity was evacuated, then fuck you better read this novel. And that's where we're at the moment. There's a novel that's coming out soon that's set immediately after Halo Infinite and will focus on Chief, the Weapon and Esparza fighting the Banished forces led by Jaeger Odumni, who wants revenge for the death of Eshram, but let's be honest, this should have been DLC for Infinite, not a fucking novel. There's just so many major stories and plot points and pieces of character development that will just show up in the expanded media and not provide anything of substance for the people who just play the games, which is how most Halo fans consume the story. It gives people confusion and just makes all the games come across as disjointed messes. The best thing that can happen for Halo 7 is that it actually remembers the legendary ending of Infinite and focuses on that instead of trying to include anything from the novels and expanded media, because clearly it just isn't working. I just hope that in the future, this studio remembers that Halo is a video game franchise, and that is where the main story should be shown. Thanks for watching, lads and lasses. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing and checking out some of my other videos. Sharing always helps, and if you're feeling really generous, please consider my Patreon or YouTube membership. But most of all, I just hope you had a great day, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.